Welcome to the country, where we do country things, and on today's video, I'm going to take you guys over to the Grit and Gravel greenhouse. We're just going to go through a few things that we got going over there, show you how everything's growing, give you a look at the fish, and a couple of experiments that we got going on, how that's working out. So give me a minute to get over there, and I'll be right back. Okay guys, we're going to start off here looking at this New Zealand spinach that I have in one of my flood and drain gravel beds. This is the first year I've ever grown this type of spinach, so I didn't know what to expect really with it, but it has really done well in this flood and drain bed. You can see just how beautiful it looks. We're really liking the taste of this spinach, and what I want to do is I want to try to grow this through the summer, see how heat tolerant this spinach is before I commit to doing a whole lot of it. Just wanted to kind of do an experiment with it and see how well it's doing. But so far this has been a really good leafy green for us. It's really been a surprise how well it's done, and we're really enjoying this stuff. So New Zealand spinach doing really well. I'm turning around here and start giving you guys a look at the Dutch buckets. You see how well the Dutch buckets do. Now this is no surprise that these Dutch buckets are doing this well. These tomatoes are pretty much out of control here on these Dutch buckets. This one truss right here has probably over 50 tomato blooms on it. If we get all the tomatoes to form on this will be about 50 on this. I'm sure I can count them, but I counted one over here the other day, the same variety, that had 69 tomatoes on one truss. So this variety's doing real well in these Dutch buckets. This is one of the cucumbers here that I did a companion planting on. When I did the explanation for the Dutch buckets, I said I was going to plant a cucumber in 10 of these 8-gallon buckets, do a companion planting, and that really hasn't worked out as well as I was hoping it would. The tomatoes got so big so fast that they shaded out the cucumbers, so the cucumbers have not grown all that much since I planted them in there. So that's something I probably won't do again. It's just too much going on with the size of the tomato plants. It just doesn't allow the cucumber, which needs a little bit warmer weather to go ahead and sprout and do well. Just not gonna really be able to grow both of these things in the same bucket. We'll just kind of take a little stroll down through here. Let me back you guys up just a little bit. Like I said, there's 20 Dutch buckets in this system. All of them have tomatoes in them, various different varieties and stuff like that. Here's another one of the cucumbers that I trellised up that did grow past the tomato plant. Here's another one of that same variety. You can see a big long truss of tomatoes on there. These tomatoes here are a determinate type cherry tomato, and they're doing really well. Another cucumber here. Just blooms after blooms after blooms after blooms. This one here, the leaves seem to be curling a little bit. I don't know what that's all about, but you can see it's putting on a lot of tomatoes. This is a determinate as well, and kind of the way you can tell it's a determinate is at the end here when they finish out in blooms. So that means the tomato plant is almost stopped growing. I do have a couple of suckers that I didn't take off at the top just to maybe get a little bit more growth out of it. But whenever your tomato plant tops out with blooms on the very end, that means your tomato plant is pretty much done growing. Here's a perfect example of it right here. This tomato plant, at the end of the plant, actually, it went to flower, and it's going to finish up with the tomatoes on the top. So that tomato plant is virtually done growing. And once I harvest the tomatoes off of it, I'll pull it out of the bucket and I'll replace it with another determinate type to kind of get a succession planting of tomatoes throughout the summer. This one's doing really well. This is a cherry type tomato. It's already reached the top, so we may have to go ahead and top it, let it go ahead and finish out with what tomatoes it's going to put on, and then we can go ahead and replace it with another tomato to finish out the season. One thing I did do is a little experiment here. This is a determinate type tomato. This is kind of a windowsill type, very small, very compact tomato. And I knew it was going to finish out earlier than most of them, so it's pretty well done growing as well. It's got quite a few tomatoes on it. So what I did is I took a sucker from one of the larger tomato plants, and I put a sucker in right next to the determinate. So whenever this plant go ahead and finishes out and all these tomatoes ripen on it, I can just pull this plant from the bucket and then go ahead and have this this indeterminate that's growing right here take its place, and won't really disrupt my production too much. So we get down here to the end, and this tomato plant right here is very large. I took a lot of suckers off of it and planted them in other places. I'm not really sure what the variety is, but this thing is just really huge, way bigger than I expected it to be. It's got some really nice sized tomatoes on it here, as you can see. One thing that I had happen that I'm really disappointed in is one of the strings that I had it tied up with actually broke, and this entire vine here was laying on the ground when I got here yesterday. So it looks like it's actually going to possibly have some damage and kill that vine. You see, it's got a lot of weeping and stuff going on here, so not sure if that's going to come back or not. And this plant has reached over, the same plant has reached over and taken over pretty much this other determinate plant here. I got two of them on the first two buckets, and it's covering it up, but you know, they're doing okay. They've got a lot of blooms on them as well, so we'll get tomatoes out of them for sure. So we'll just look at this Tomatillo. I haven't never grown one of these before, so I just put one in the system just to see how well it would do. And I am just blown away by its growth. It really loves the aquaponics. It is a really huge plant. You treat it just like a tomato plant. You can single stem it. You can reroot the suckers. You can do a lot with these tomatillos, just like you would a tomato. And this thing has really just taken off and has done well in the aquaponics system. I'm sure I'll get a lot of fruit off of these. I've never really tried to grow them before, but as far as how well the plant does, it's just amazing how big this thing is. So here is the one I was talking about earlier. The truss here on this one tomato plant, it was 69 blooms on this one particular truss right here, and it's almost filled out all the way. It's grown out as far as it's going to go, and then of course it's got a lot of tomatoes coming in. and they'll fill in on the ends as we go along and they mature a little bit more. So here's the next truss on that same plant. I try to trim these leaves off just to make sure I'm not bumping these flowers and knocking them off. But let's just count this truss right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53 tomatoes on this one truss alone. I think there was 61 tomatoes on this truss. So over 100 tomatoes just on 2 trusses on this plant. And got another truss going here and another truss going there. And then we got quite a bit of room left for this thing to grow before it tops out. I can see at least one more truss coming in right there. So you got a potential to have a couple of 100 tomatoes just off of this one plant here. These double stack grow beds have just way outperformed what I expected them to. It's just a jungle in here right now. I really got overzealous and stacked a lot of plants in here when they were smaller and not really realizing how much growth I was going to get out of these things. And this is a squash or a zucchini. I'm not sure which. I haven't never grown this stuff in here before, these squashes and stuff. So I put one of these in the grow bed and you can see how well it's doing. It's just doing amazing. Getting some little fruit on there now. Of course, we got some tomato plants in here that's doing really well. Got a lot of tomatoes on them. These are determinants as well, and they will be replaced whenever they finish fruiting. Here's a New Zealand spinach that's growing in this gravel bed. Doing really well, and no matter what we're growing it in, it's doing really good. Here's another little tiny tomato plant. This is one of the windowsill types. Now I think I'm going to really like these tomato plants just because I can squeeze a lot of them in a small amount of space, and they're going to give me a lot of fruit, and then I'm going to be able to just do a succession planting and just replace them when they're done all throughout the season, just as long as you're planting some tomato plants, every so often to replace them with. You're going to get fruit off of these things all summer long. Here's a tomatillo that I took, a cutting that I took off of the mother plant. You can see that thing is really doing well. It's got a ton of fruit on it. There's the root system for it right there, how well it rooted. So I'm really impressed with the tomatillos. Let's go to the next bed here, and I'll show you kind of what we got going on in here. This is our water spinach, and it has done real well. Haven't grown that before either. That's new for me this year, and it's really doing real well. Here are some tomatoes that I suckered, that I started in here. They're being overtaken. They're not really growing as much as I'd like, just because there's so much in this bed that they're not getting the light that they need. So they're doing really well if I would have given them enough room, give them enough space. This is okra. First time I've ever grown okra in here, and just like everything else, that it's being overtaken by the other stuff. I need to come in here and do a lot of pruning. I'm tying some stuff up. I need to tie this up. This is a bullseye or a toothache plant. I believe. It needs to be tied up. It's kind of hanging down a little bit. Here's another one right next to it. I did tie this one up. And all these plants need to be tied up on strings. Really excited about getting this okra to grow. See how well it does in here. I don't have too many okra plants. Like I said, this is just experimental a year for me as far as a lot of these varieties and a lot of these different things. So we'll get a good idea of what works and what don't this year. Then we'll come back next year and even be more successful and more productive. So we're looking down here at the bottom. This is the deep water culture. This is New Zealand spinach in the deep water culture. They're just growing in 2-inch net pots. The roots are just sticking down in the water there. Let me, I don't know if I can pull one out for you guys. See how well the roots are going. And they're just growing down in the water. And what I've been doing is just coming over here, and you can see where I've just removed some leaves for a salad, and the thing just keeps on coming and keeps on putting new leaves on. Really makes a good salad. This is another spinach variety. This is red Malabar spinach. I don't know why the leaves are so yellow and they look like they got a lot of chlorosis in them. That's a sign of some deficiencies, maybe iron. But this is the only plant that is showing this deficiency here, so I'm not really sure what to do to correct it. I've added iron into the system and everything, and you can see the other plants aren't having any issues. So it's really not stopping it from growing. The thing is really vined up and growing tall, starting to put some fruit on right there. And again, you just want to come in here, cut some leaves off of here, and just make you a salad with this. This is a really warm weather green, supposed to really do good in the heat. First time I'm growing it this year, just to try and get some greens throughout the summer when it gets really hot here in western Oklahoma. So I'm really excited about this red Malabar spinach and the New Zealand spinach. And the water spinach is, of course, it's doing really well too. You see, I took some leaves off of it, made a salad yesterday. These are my heirloom tomatoes here. These are my West Virginia hillbilly heirloom tomatoes. I'm not too impressed with these. Just like a lot of the heirlooms that you grow, they're really not that productive. And you can see there's the truss on this thing has 1, 2, 3, 4, has 4 tomatoes on the truss. So it's really not all that productive as far as how many tomatoes you're going to get for each plant. And I knew that going into it. I just wanted to kind of try a different type of heirloom. I stayed away from heirlooms totally last year, and I thought I'd give these a go. And they're doing exactly what I expected them to do. Not really putting on a lot of fruit. This one's growing really tall. I got to get up there and string it up. These are, this is another determinate cherry type tomato. I'm not really sure exactly what variety. These are my Windowsill tomatoes here. I got them all in the front of this grow bed. And these are called, I believe these are called funny plums. They are really doing good. They're putting in most of their fruit now. And once these guys are ripe and you pick all the fruit, they'll just come on out of here, and we'll replace them with another determinate tomato and just kind of go through that process all summer. Here's another okra right here that is being deprived of light. just not enough sunlight getting from here, you know, to here. So just like I said, overgrown, overplanted, but still getting a lot of production, even though we really have a light issue here with a lot of these plants. Down here on the bottom is what's left of our onions. You can see I've got these things that are huge tops on them, these green onions. We've been just picking one or two and putting them in our fried potatoes and our salads and stuff. So they're really doing well. That, of course, onions really grow well in this system. You can produce a lot of onions in a small amount of space if you have a use for them, and you can grow them all summer long. Here is a pepper plant that's being kind of dwarfed here, but it has a pepper on it. So you look at that pepper right there. It's called Black Beauty. There's several more blooms there, so I should get several peppers off of this plant. I might come in here and remove some of this stuff and thin some of this stuff out so I can get a little bit more light penetration, kind of help this stuff grow a little bit better. Definitely got to do some trimming and some training up on some strings on this deal. Here is a Tomatillo cutting that I took off of the mother plant. I have a hard time taking those suckers off, and I'm just throwing them away. I always want to try to find a place to stick them in the system, and so far I just haven't found a place for this guy yet. But if you pull him out and look how well they rooted, so you can get a lot of plants off of one mother just by taking these cuttings and rooting them. And what I've done is I just stuck the cutting down in my drain here, and it rooted just fine all by itself in that drain. Got some roots that potentially might clog up my drain here, so yeah, I just stuck that in there, and it's rooted and ready to transplant if I could find a place for it to go. Just come around here, and I want to show you guys the nutrient film technique. I don't think I've explained that yet this year, and I had some space behind these grow beds that I thought, you know, were going to be wasted space, and greenhouse space is such a commodity in here that you really don't want to waste any space. You want to find creative ways to use every inch of space that you can to grow something in. So I built this Nft system here that wraps around and goes behind all the grow beds, and then comes around and grows goes in front of the sump tank actually. So I'll start right here with these green beans. There's 2 green bean plants here. I didn't grow a lot of green beans because I didn't have a lot of space, and I wanted to showcase as much variety and things that you can grow in these systems as much as I could this year. This is kind of a trial or an experimental or an educational greenhouse where I'm doing these videos to show people how well they can grow with aquaponics and how productive it actually is. These bean plants are just massive. They have a lot of flowers on them. They're just growing in 2-inch net pots in my nutrient film technique. Get down here and see if we can look at the root system on this thing and see how much of a root system is actually on there. Just a big, huge amount of roots supporting this plant, and it just drains in and goes back to to my drain line there. This section is actually 10 feet. It runs north and south. We've got a lot of these little determinate tomatoes in here as well. They're just setting in the 2-inch net pots and just setting in the rail system there, or the nutrient film technique there. This is all space that I would not have room to put grow beds in. If I were to build a grow bed here, just wouldn't have the space. So any plants that I get out of this are going to be a bonus anyway. So on this side, this is the north side, and of course you can see all this stuff in front of it is blocking the light away from it. So a lot of this stuff is not growing as well as it could, or it's pretty leggy because it's kind of being deprived of light. This plant right here is grown really large. It's not being deprived of very much light, it don't look like. But these okra plants that I was hoping would grow tall really aren't doing as well because they don't have enough light. Let me get stepped over here. I don't have any place to move them to, so I don't know if they're going to produce or not. So here's another tomato plant, another tomato plant. This stuff I'm growing right here, I don't really know what it is. I didn't label it, or I lost the label for it, and I have a lot of it seeded and it's growing just massively, and I just don't know exactly what it is. So we've been cutting the leaves and putting them in salads. When I figure that out, I'll let you guys know exactly what that is. But as far as right now, I'm at a loss for what this stuff is right here. And there's a couple more okra. In this corner right here, I have a longevity spinach growing right here. Got it up on a string. And the same thing here, you just take pull you some leaves off of it and put it in your salad. Every leaf node has another plant that's going to come off of it, kind of like a tomato plant, kind of like a sucker. So when you pick these leaves, you're going to have another plant come out, another sucker come out that you can cut and root and plant somewhere else, or you can just cut the leaves or whatever. Here's some cuttings that I took of it and just stuck them right next to it in the water, and you can see how they're rooting. That thing's doing just fine. This is going to be a whole new plant. So very easy to propagate. I don't like it as much as I do the Malabar spinach or the New Zealand spinach, but this longevity spinach is going to be really productive and real easy to propagate and real easy to grow. This plant here is a tomato plant called Rapunzel, and you can see this thing is just grown out of control. I've had to lower and lean it, and it's still almost reaching the ceiling there. So I'll probably take it out as soon as it finishes up with the fruiting that it's got. I'll go ahead and head it off, let it finish fruiting, and then take it out and replace it with something different. So we turn around here and go back to the nutrient film technique here. So the portion that runs north and south is 10 feet long. This portion that runs behind the grow beds is 20 feet long. And then it makes a little jog here. It comes in front of the sump tank, which has helped. It's helped shading the sump tank. I don't want very much sun getting to that sump tank and heating that water up. It's really important that you keep your water as cool as possible in the summer. So we really want to try and keep that shaded. And that's what these tomatoes are doing here. Again, there's a couple of green beans growing down here, and they're doing the same thing as the other ones are. They're just putting on a lot of flowers now, and I'm already getting a bean or two there, if you can see that one. Another tomato plant. Here's the water spinach. New Zealand spinach growing in the NFT. Just an experiment to see if it would grow in all the various grow methods that we're using, and it doesn't seem to care where it's at. It's just going to grow for you. So tomato plants down through here, same thing. Just a bunch of determinate cherry type tomatoes that are doing really well, helping me shade my sump tank, using up my wasted space, and giving me some fruit. So that NFT is really a good system if you want to maximize your space and squeeze a lot of plants in a space that you wouldn't normally be able to grow anything in. So I'm really enjoying that. Come around here and look at our pepper plants that we're doing our dual root zone experiment on. And this thing is really starting to put on some fruit. This is a purple beauty. And the way I did this is it's growing in the exact same pot that I bought it in from the store. And I just set it on top of the gravel on my flood and drain bed. And I'm not going to be able to pick it up. But what happened was, if I can get down here, what happened with this is the roots have actually came out the bottom of the pot and has grown into the gravel. And I can't move the plant out because it's already rooted itself into the gravel. So you just take your pepper plant, you don't have to repot it or anything or disturb it, and just put it on top of the gravel in your flood and drain bed, and eventually what it's going to do, it's going to root itself into the gravel and hopefully produce a lot of really nice peppers for you. So there's a look at what we got going on in the grit and gravel greenhouse right now. Just a ton of production with the tomatoes. Everything is just really doing well. The only problem I'm having is a little bit of an issue with some light deprivation on some of these plants. Really not getting enough sunlight just because I overcrowded most of this stuff, and I need to kind of do some thinning, which I will do once a lot of these tomato plants kind of finish up. Will be pulled out of there, and if I don't have the room, I won't replace them. If I do have the room, I'll replace them. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this little tour of the grit and gravel greenhouse and what's going on in here. We'll just kind of update you guys as we go along through the season on what's going on with everything in here and how we're doing things. We'll do a complete system overview at some point where we're going to show you exactly the dimensions of the system, how much water's in the system, how many fish are in the system, how much filtration we have in the system to grow all these plants. You can kind of get an idea of you step back here and just kind of look, give you an overview, just looking down the greenhouse, how much growth there is on this stuff. It's just amazing. And this is just late May. We've still got a lot of summer left to grow here. And look at how everything is doing. One thing that I will point out while we're looking at it, I've been adding fish slowly throughout this whole process, kind of getting this thing cycled. I've been doing about 10 or 12 fish a week since I started the system up back in March. And I'm gonna look over here on my board. You want to really keep good track of how many fish you have in your system. Just going to help you determine what your stocking densities need to be, and help you with your water quality and stuff like that. So I've just got a little board here that I keep a lot of my notes on, and it looks like at this point in time I have 89 fish in the system. The tanks are pretty even as far as the amount of fish. The sump tank does have 5 fish in it. That's going to be 3 koi. The carp that Tammy caught, and the flathead that I caught about a month ago, or in the sump tank. And you want a few fish in your sump tank, just to make sure that you're keeping the mosquitoes and stuff out. And I wouldn't recommend a bunch of fish in your sump tank, because you're going to be putting solids from your sump tank up to your fish tanks. But you want to put a few fish in there just to make sure that you're not breeding a ton of mosquitoes. And I just enjoy having the fish. So you get down here and look. There's the flathead right there. Been feeding him about once a week. I just get him a bluegill and cut it up in a couple pieces and drop it to him, and he seems to take it just fine. So anyway, so here's a look at, again, a look at the system overall, how huge everything is growing, how well the Dutch buckets are doing, and everything like that. So 89 fish, supplying all the nutrients we need to grow all of this stuff in this greenhouse. So it's really amazing what you can do with these systems, and how much nutrients that those fish actually produce for your tomatoes and things like that. So anyway, this video is getting really long, guys, so I'm gonna go ahead and get off here right now. I appreciate you watching, and we'll be back.